Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Most are afraid of unknown depths, skirting shores thinking world flat, and with the island girls in celebration of new religion. Nobody led me or said this way. I sailed alone on makeshift raft with wind as companion. Fate for deliverance, confidence enough to assess new disposition. Seekers of lost paradise may seem fools to those who never sought the other worlds. Welcome to Momentary Zen with Zen Garcia. Visit www.fallenangels.tv. You're listening to Revolution Radio.
As little as long ago, or as far away as forever. This is where we meet to celebrate what never was as it comes to pass. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And I thank those of you that have taken time to join us for live discussion this evening. Thank you for doing so. It's always a pleasure to be with you and to share dialogue and to go down that rabbit hole and try to decipher the illusion parading as reality. Today I have as guests with me John Pounders of NowYouSeeTV and also David Carrico. As soon as we can bring him on, let me see if I can add him as contact here. And then if not, John, I'll get you to drag him on to call.
All right, no problem.
But in the meantime, brother, can you go ahead and give out your website information, the things that you're involved in, where people can go to, find your work and support you in your endeavors?
Sure, man. I appreciate you having me on. First off, I really do, man. And I thank you for you sent me your books, and I've been reading them. And I'm really interested in a lot of the work you're doing. But you can get my stuff is on NowYouSeeTV.org or .com, and you can also find me on YouTube and numerous other places. But Now You See TV, just exactly like it sounds. And we've been doing this thing since about 2010. When David Carrico gets on here, I dragged him on the thing. I'm not sure if he's on yet or not, but I drug him on here, so we'll see if he's on. But we've been doing the kind of stuff, same kind of stuff that you do, trying to inform people of the truth and trying to get as much out there so people's mind can kind of be free from this whole matrix, this Luciferian matrix that's out there. And so I definitely appreciate you having me on, brother.
It's my pleasure, and I'm always glad to collaborate with others that are doing similar work and trying to wake up the masses and bring them to understanding on what's really going on. You can tell David too that I sent him a contact request, and if he accepts it, or Donna, if he accepts it, then I'll be able to drag them.
Okay, and if not, I just added him to the car. I just tried to add him, so hopefully he will pick up and get on here pretty shortly. So
Yeah, no problem. In the meantime, that there he is actually. David, are you there, brother?
I am here, Zen.
Excellent. Well, David, can you give out your website contact information, anything that you would like to share with listening audience, and where they can go to support your work, and a little bit about yourself, and your focus as far as your work for the kingdom? And
you can find us at FOJCradio.com, FOJCradio.com. And basically, I'm just a minister of the gospel. And the Lord called me to preach and to defend the gospel. And there's just been a lot of stuff getting in the way. And there on our website, we've got 24-hour auto DJ. We have live internet radio on Sunday mornings. And we've got a multitude of archives, books, DVDs, and helps. We're most known for our work in satanic ritual abuse and Freemasonry. And there's just a lot of stuff there that people can go and access there at FOJC Radio.
Excellent. Well, we definitely are going to be talking about some of those things this evening. In fact, one of my producers here had sent me a link to a video of I believe it was a young girl being interviewed by um, one of the investigators over the Hampstead school occurrences and the things that were happening there. And I was just absolutely blown away by the video. I just couldn't believe the kind of things that she was just nonchalantly mentioning. And it reminded me of also the Franklin cover up and the information that Senator John DeCamp had put into that book in representing those kids pro bono and how they were, he was sharing even information which kind of pointed the finger at the priests that were involved with the boys club over there. And this was at a time prior to all of the information breaking on all of the pedophile priests and how the Catholic Church had covered it all up and how it had been ongoing for so many years. And so that just confirmed the authenticity of the information that was part of that. But the satanic ritual abuse that was mentioned by the children and the what the foster parents had to contend with in taking these children in, and it just was um, so just the conspiracy and the things that were occurring to them was just so far beyond belief. It was difficult for them to accept that the children had actually gone through what they had gone through. And I felt the same way in watching this video, and also the other one of the 15-year-old girl that her grandmother was basically abusing her with other members of her family, and how they were involved in a satanic occult. And it's
Yeah, and then there's another story that David has kind of been, known for locally here in Evansville, Indiana. There was they called it the Satanic Blue House, and it's another story very similar to Hampstead and those others. That this is a 20-year-old story where Freemasons, and basically David can tell you more about it, but he has a book about it as well that is really intriguing. That's why I wanted to bring him on with me to kind of get this story out there a little bit, because at the time when this stuff happened, this was before the internet was taking place. This is before there was mass being able to put out information. The only media that they had, I believe, at the time was Current Affair that videotaped the whole thing, but they got sued shortly after putting that video out and had to take it down. But so there wasn't a lot of coverage on this whole subject in Evansville anyway. And very interesting things that happen. I mean, it's just appalling, the kind of things that you hear from these kids from their own mouths. And that's one of the things at the Exposing Darkness Prophecy Conference in Evansville, Indiana. And not a lot of people know that, but when we're from in Indiana, there is the most concentration of 33rd degree Freemasons in anywhere in the world is there in Indiana. And it's actually one of the birthplaces of the KKK, and just real steeped in the occult in that area.
there seems to be this kind of thing happening all over, and it's all of this, a lot of this material and this information is coming to light, and that a lot of the elites are definitely involved. And even I saw an article not long ago, just I guess this past week, where one of these child actors had talked about and basically pointed the finger at Hollywood and to a lot of the moguls over there being involved in the in abusing young children, and and how they've been covering it up and have been protected and guarded and allowed to do these kind of things for a very long time. And this information also is authenticates the wide, I mean, the just so many nations and all over the world this kind of thing is happening. And just like with the Franklin cover up information, these kids were being pimped out to these political elite, and and it's just mind blowing to really consider that these kind of things happen to them, and they've pointed the finger all the way up the ladder to, as far as the involvement of presidents, senators, um, other representatives, political representatives, and just it's just it's it's almost too much to accept as actually happening. But this is the kind of stuff that is going on. David, do you have something you'd like to add to this?
Well, this is the exact situation we saw in Evansville. We had 12 children that were telling the same story. They were alleging that they were being taken out of public school by their teachers and taken to a blue house where they were subjected to satanic rituals, where they saw animal human sacrifice, subjected to sexual rituals, being drugged. And on the top of that, and I'll be honest, when I heard this, I couldn't get my mind around it at first. They were implicating institutions, they were implicating leading figures in the community, not only of doing things, but of working together to do things that were just absolutely unbelievable. And as I have had some contact over the last few decades with satanic ritual abuse, the disbelief card is something that these people really play. The more unbelievable they can make it, the safer they are, to where people just can't get their mind around the reality that this type of thing is even being done. But I believe, and as John said, uh, here in Evansville, and this broke now over 20 years ago. It's hard to seem like that many years have gone by, but the Chicago Tribune did an article, and the Current Affair did an article, and had it been in the days of the internet, it would have just absolutely went postal. And I think that one of the big reasons I believe that the Lord has brought John into our life, and he's had a burden to make a documentary on the Blue House and to bring it back into people's awareness, is number one, because it was a prototype of what we've seen in a lot of places, in Hampstead, and we've seen it in a lot of places, that you have children that are victimized from an institutional setting. And not only are they victimized, but always the cover up is in place. Should anything happen, or should anything go south, this cover up is there. And what we have seen is that over and over, there is an ingredient there that is Freemasonry. And here in Evansville, the children were naming specific individuals that were Freemasons, and these people were being investigated by specific individuals that were Freemasons. And after a while, we begin to connect some dots. And as I begin to study Freemasonry, I found that this would be the most natural thing in the world that would happen when I begin to learn about people like Aleister Crowley and how they use the lodge, and organizations like the Golden Dawn and the OTO, and dozens of others that use the Masonic Lodge as a recruitment vehicle to do what they do. And also something that has just, and I haven't even had a lot of time to talk to John about this since the conference, but since the conference in Evansville, the Exposing Darkness conference, when I spoke about this, and I made the statement there that I believed that things were different now in Evansville. We have a prosecutor that I believe is a good man. Nick Herman's his name. And I wouldn't say that if I didn't believe it. And the prosecutor before, his name was Stan Levko. They called him Let Him Go Levko, because he was notorious not pursuing sexual abuse cases. But I believe, and there was actually Nick Herman used footage from the current affair video of the Blue House to be reelected. And there's now a sex crimes unit in Evansville that have some real believers, I think, and there's some good people there that'll give people an honest shake. And at the conference, I made that statement and I said that I believe that things would be different if people would come forth. And just since the conference, we have had contact with an individual that is claiming that they were molested at a second Blue House here in Evansville. And I want you all to pray, because I believe, and I'm really hoping, that within a month to 60 days, this person is going to be strong enough to have the courage to come up and tell the story. And this is just one of many that are here. I know it with all my heart that there's this person, and then there's a dozen more, because I don't believe it ever stopped here. They've had no reason to stop. And the shattered lives that there's just no way to put into words the effect that a child that goes through this type of thing. I mean, can you imagine what would happen? And not only to be subjected to this and then to be told you're crazy for even saying anything about it, it's devastating. And there were suicides, connected with this thing. This was really rough stuff. So I really believe the Lord is not done with this. And I believe that the Lord is going to be bringing a new generation of survivors out to stand up here in Evansville and all over the world. And this is what people need to understand. And admittedly, this is tough stuff. We get calls from people that are just, for whatever reason, you just know they're not telling you the truth. And you have to sort that out. But this thing is going on. And there are people all over the world that are being victimized in this kind of a satanic program. And we need to have people that are in place, that understand, that are caring, to be able to reach out a hand to these people, because there's not many people that can do it. There's not many people that can do it. And as you said, this is something that it's not just going on here and there. This thing, I believe that in almost any city of any size, and a lot of times it's not in the city. What we found, that this stuff is going on in a trailer court, down in the South, and this is going on in poor areas, and it's just everywhere. And we just really need the Lord to come on and be our help and our advocate. And that's just what I really ask, is for everyone's prayers, because I believe the Lord wants to blow the lid off this thing, not only here in Evansville, but all over the world, all over the world. I believe that with all my heart.
It's absolutely amazing to me that these children have any sense of normality, that they can still be, children, and having gone through all of this sexual and emotional, mental, and physical abuse, how they are able to just still go on with life. Because looking in from the outside, it seems like they would have every reason to simply just shut down. And I'm sure that probably a lot of them do. And the fact that any of them can survive and overcome is just absolutely mind blowing, because I can't even fathom being subjected to the kind of the kind of rampant abuse that they described in some of their video testimony, um, and in what is shown and depicted in, like, the conspiracy of silence, which was pulled before it ever aired, the satanic ritual abuse, and they're being forced to slaughter innocent children, to drink their blood, to consume their flesh. I mean, all that is just so beyond belief and beyond being able to even wrap your mind around. And yet, this was the kind of life and experience that they had undergone for so very long. And I think that, as far as the abusers, that because the stories are so far out and just so seemingly unreal, that they depend on that um, to really to keep the children labeled as just crazy or lunatic fringe, and to make the stories just utterly unbelievable. And so, if you would, can you, if you don't mind, can you share some of what you know as far as not just what you've, as far as helping people in Evansville, Indiana, which is going to bring it and localize this? And I'm sure that, as you said, this is something that is being perpetuated on a large scale, and that we see reflected in really probably all local communities. Just that it's not on the surface and it's not talked about, but even probably the police are, know about it and are and have investigated, but don't bring on that kind of satanic slant to their investigation. But also, if you would talk about even nationwide and even worldwide, the kind of things that you have learned in helping and assisting individuals that have gone through this kind of just incredible experience.
Well, one of the common themes is playing the disbelief card. And there have been children that they do tell unbelievable things. Like if you have a young child that someone is molested, and they'll put a Mickey Mouse on and Mickey Mouse mask, and they're telling the story of how they were molested at a satanic ritual by Mickey Mouse. And there's almost a good chance this is just going to be dismissed uh, right off the top. And there's a financial element to this. It's not just religiously driven. There's an element of that, and it's not just a, a erotic element to it. More than that, though that does exist, but this is always tied to kiddie porn. It's tied to kiddie prostitution. It's tied to child trafficking, and all of these things are always there when you have this kind of a institutional setting, and always these children. And I mentioned here that there were a lot of destroyed lives, and there were also some people that have been set free. And I want to say this also, that we have been privileged to be able to be an instrument in setting people free. And we have seen some absolutely amazing things take place. Absolutely amazing. Uh, we saw one young lady that another issue that gets involved here is multiplicity, DID, or as it used to be called MPD, where a lot of times through just the absolute stress the soul breaks down and splits. And
Right.
sometimes this is even intentional. There are cults that actually know how to split a person to control them in a Manchurian candidate type situation. And and here again, this really will push people's envelope. But the the very technology to do this was developed by Timothy Leary back in the 50s. A lot of it, and of course, a lot of it come from the North Koreans and from the Nazis. But Timothy Leary, on the state of Massachusetts dime, did experiments in the Massachusetts prison system, and he would use drugs. He used LSD back before anyone knew what LSD was, and he would use sex, fear, and music. And he said that these were the elements: drugs, sex, fear, and music. And he said that through these four elements, he could make a straight person gay, a gay person straight, that he could basically do what he wanted to with the person. And Timothy Leary, when he was in Vacaville prison, was known to have direct connections with the Golden Dawn. Back in the days when, full disclosure, would read Playboy magazine. Maybe somebody else remembers the Playboy magazine from the 60s and 70s. They had a columnist by the name of Anton Wilson, and he was a hip guy that wrote about all of the hip stuff people wanted to hear about, and he was a member of the Golden Dawn, and he would frequently visit Leary was when he was in Vacaville prison, and these are the type of things that are very sophisticated. They know how to control these kids, and it's just like the pimp. A pimp knows how to control these girls through abuse and fear, and this is just what we're talking about. And it's become very sophisticated. It's become very widespread, and it's been turned into an industry through the kiddie porn, the prostitution, and the child trafficking. And it's just an ugly, ugly monster that needs to be exposed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. John, in your research on some of these issues and some of these topics, have y'all learned about I recently read that supposedly Canada was bringing up charges against Queen Elizabeth and other members of the royal family for things like human hunting parties and for a number of children that ended up disappearing, like over 80 bodies that they discovered, body parts and in like an incendiary unit that was at the bottom of some of these local schools there in Canada. But do you know of, anything connected to that, or and what have you learned as far as these kind of just atrocities that are being perpetuated by the elites all over the world?
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that stuff up because it's very common for people that are of wealth and people that have
Hold on, brother. We're at the first break.
okay.
Hold on, everyone. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. John, let me go ahead and give you the platform to finish up what you were about to go into, and then we'll continue from there.
Yeah, and what I was going to say is it's really no surprise to me that the leaders of the country, that the leaders of the world, the elite, the people that are high level in these secret societies are doing these things. It's not a surprise because I know Zen and I know David. You both have studied Aleister Crowley, and you both know a lot about Aleister Crowley. Aleister Crowley was into these types of things. He was into sex abuse, into all kind of child sacrifice, all these things. Aleister Crowley himself said in his book he had more metals. He had enough metals that it could weigh down an elephant. And this is talking about Freemasonry at metals. He also knew more handshakes and signs than he could learn in several lifetimes. And I can't remember the exact quote, but that's very similar to the quote he said. Very, very high level Freemason, and also Rosicrucian, Golden Dawn, OTO member. Um, and that's what these elite people are. These They're very high level in these things, and the highest level of magic to these people would be sacrifice, and a lot of times it's for children, 8 year old. I believe it was 8 year old children or children of a young age, young boys mainly, that are the best sacrifice according to Crowley. Um, Blonde hair, blue eyed, and also the German element to this whole thing. There's a high German element to this whole thing. One thing that David, he uncovered, and I really kind of latched onto this whole idea. But in our area, German people are huge. This town was founded by Germans. Not only was it founded by Germans, and I'm not bashing German people. I have German people in my family. Not all German people are like this, but the Bavarian Illuminati, when it was actually cast out of the area where it was at, when Weishaupt and all them with the Bavarian Illuminati, you can trace their migration to this area. So there's a lot of elements of that going on in there. When you're talking about the Queen, you're talking about these different people. I mean, very tied into Aleister Crowley, and I guess like even the Queen of England, some people believe that, or Barbara Bush, some people believe that she is related to Aleister Crowley. So I mean, there's definitely these huge ties with the elite and this, because they believe this is the highest level of magic. And this goes back to biblical times when they would pass the children through fire to sacrifice the children. A lot of these children that go missing every year are missing at the hands of these people. And the children that are abused, this is usually a generational thing. For the children that are actually the ones that are being abused, they are being trained to be a leader of a coven, or trained to do the exact same thing when they get older. And a lot of the children that are actually sacrificed and eaten and as cannibalism, or they're drinking their blood, those are children that are, people don't miss as much. I know, remember back before I was doing all this, I helped some people with some human rights organizations. And in California, there were kids. They called them. You were talking about them rounding up kids and stuff. They had these vans that would go out and round up kids. They'd find them on the street. They just round them up, and they went through CPS to do this stuff. And some of these kids were never seen again. They died in foster care, legally being taken away. They found out the judge had a conflict of interest. He was getting paid for every child he was taken away through CPS. He was on their board. A lot of this stuff is going on all over the world. Very corrupt, very crooked system that we have going on with this thing. People come up missing. They grind up their bones, and a lot of people, they never find these bodies. People, if people look at the statistics on how many children go up missing, they would be appalled, and they can find that online, so they can go check that out. But it's an amazing amount of people that go missing all the time. These families have been doing it to each other since the beginning. A lot of times, the people you find that have been abused and are being satanically ritual abused are not just random children. Most of these children are is a family generational thing that have been passed down from generation to generation to generation. And to them, it's not evil. To them, this is a good thing. This is how they attain the highest levels of their magic. This is the cream of the crop for them. Whereas to somebody like us, the best thing you can teach your children would be the scriptures and learning from Proverbs, or learning from some of these books. But to them, the highest level of good thing that they can do for their children and for them is this satanic ritual abuse and these horrible things that they do to people. And it's yeah, and in our research, and in my research as well, I found some amazing connections between all the elite, almost every elite, every president we've ever had, every queen, king. Um, it goes back to the very beginning of time. I mean, this is stuff that was, people say that, they read the Bible, they look at Yahweh and they say this is an evil God. He was killing children, women, and children, but they don't realize that a lot of these people that the presidents, the kings, and everybody claim to have come from are these Nephilim tribes, are these tribes of people that are not human. They're not human, and they do all these things to each other. And this is the kind of life that they live. And I think Gary Wayne from Genesis 6 Conspiracy did a really good job of tying those families into these groups that were alive back then. And that's one reason the Bible has the Table of Nations in it. You read the Table of Nations, those are the humans that were alive after the flood. Those are the ones that came from Noah. But there's all these other tribes, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Rephaim, all these different tribes that were not in the Table of Nations, so they were not of the human tribes that came from Noah, that appear after the flood. And this is where most of these kingships claim to come from. So it's very interesting. I mean, I could go on for hours, man. Stop me whenever. But this is just the kind of stuff that is going on, and it's not like, it's not necessarily hidden. That's the thing. Like a lot of this stuff, they're like, oh, this is hidden, but no, it's not really. It's hidden in plain sight. And there's a difference between completely hidden and being hidden in plain sight. When you hide something in plain sight, it's a lot easier to look over it, and to really just not give it any credence. And a lot of people, when they hear about Aleister Crowley, they think, oh, that guy was just a joke or whatever. But there's people that really listen to what he says. I mean, you look at actors like Johnny Depp. Um, You know, he quotes Aleister Crowley all the time. If you've seen him recently, he looks really messed up. I mean, there's something wrong with the guy, but he's friends with the guys that did the West Memphis Three murders, the guys that just got out of prison supposedly that weren't guilty. But if you look over you look over the case, it's pretty apparent to me that Damien Eccles and all those guys did do it. They had a very good documentary team, very good lawyers and everything that kind of got them out of it there at the end. But um, he still quotes Aleister Crowley on his website. It's just crazy stuff, man. And I'll kind of stop with it there for a minute because I think I'm getting off on a rabbit trail a little bit with it, but it completely there's no doubt in my mind that the elite are in on this. So are you there, Zen? Did I lose you guys?
I'm here.
I
Okay.
apologize. I had it on mute. I
Awesome.
was just saying though, that no, it's really good for you to be making these connections because absolutely it does go back. The historical record locks it in that this is the way that things have unfolded. There was a documentary that was done which confirms all of the things that we're saying, and that it was called The Crown Killers, and it talks about how the elites, how they even abusing their own children, they are schizoid. They're brought up insane, and that then they treat the masses, the people that they are supposedly over and to take care of, they abuse them and treat them in the same kind of schizoid manner that they were brought up in their upbringing. And um, because these kind of things are instituted as far as the cannibalism, the abuse, the sexual abuse, the mental, emotional, physical, all of those things, it totally makes them psychotic, and these are the kind of people that are supposedly ruling over, even like George Bush and being abused by his father, and being a bisexual and inviting male prostitutes into the White House. I mean, these kind of things sound insane, but the evidence is there to support these scenarios. And the website that I had posted into the chat room is from the International Tribunal for Crimes of Church and State. And an individual named Kevin Annett is part of bringing forth these charges against Queen Elizabeth, Joseph Ratzingers, and others that, it's documented through these videotape testimonies of these individuals that have been subjected to all of this, just what seems to be incredibly insane um, scenarios, but this is the truth of what's going on in the world. And that documentary, The Crown Killers, it takes it all the way back hundreds of years into the past, talks about how the elites were involved in cannibalizing flesh, and even bathing in the blood of children. And this kind of stuff goes back even to Pharaoh's day. I had posted a quote in my fourth book, Lucifer, the Father of Cain, talking about how one of the reasons that the Most High had brought in all these plagues and then ended it with the slaughter of all their firstborn was that Pharaoh and others were involved in bathing in the blood of the innocents of the Hebrew children. And so, I mean, there were a lot of things that were going on which aren't, just public knowledge as far as, the masses doing their research and investigation and bringing forth this kind of information. But yeah, like what you were talking about with the reason um, that Yahweh in the Old Testament sends the Joshua and the Israelites into the land of Canaan and tells them to slaughter every man, woman, and child, is because they are warring against these Nephilim tribes, and these individuals, these people, they are involved in this kind of ritual abuse, instituted cannibalism and the sacrifice of children, even victim sacrifice, and that's even like the flood of Noah's day. Joshua's sword and was used like the flood of Noah's day to wipe out, to slaughter this abominable seed line. David, did you have a comment on what we're talking about?
Well, absolutely. The the religious objectives from slaughtering a child. They're number one. They believe they get power from it, and there's no denying that there's a reality to occult power, and they believe that they lengthen their life by doing it. But satanic ritual abuse ties in directly with two areas that I believe the Lord is revealing to people worldwide. And the first one would be with gates. Everybody is aware that there are gates being opened, talking about
Right.
the arches. And Aleister Crowley, as I'm sure you know, he brought through a gate Iwas, who looked like a little alien gray.
Right.
And these people know and understand that this is one of the most powerful mediums for bringing fallen entities through the gates. And uh, from what John has told me about you, I know that you're one of these people that there's been a revelation in the body of Christ that's gone out to a lot of people that it's about the seed of the serpent that
Yes.
Satan is establishing in these last days.
Right.
And I believe that because of our massive egos, that the Lord doesn't give all of the revelation to one person. That there's little pieces of the puzzle that are given to a lot of people, and you can just see these people that when the Lord reveals this to them, they just got to study, 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 pursue it, and very much in satanic ritual abuse. And very much same in the UFO phenomenon, that these stories are told where, yes, I was impregnated, I had a baby, they took my baby.
Yes.
And very much what we have here is the selective breeding programs of Adolf Hitler and the SS. And I believe that this took place after the flood, when they would have people with these Nephilim genes. They would selectively breed them to enhance these Nephilim characteristics. And this is the same thing with satanic ritual abuse. It's about people that are doing all kinds of these crazy things. And it's the same thing with the UFO. You hear the same thing. I was impregnated. They took my embryo. They took my baby. The same thing with satanic ritual abuse. And it's all about the seed. It's the fallen angels that are doing things that are just evil beyond almost the ability to speak about them and believe them. And it's about this agenda that Satan has had since his falls to establish his seed, and very much satanic ritual abuse is ground zero with the gates and the seed that's being revealed all over the body of Christ.
Yeah, I'm in absolute agreement with you, and that's been a large part of the work that I do, is to help people to understand the differentiation between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, the what's you know cited as the wheat and the tares, or the goat and the sheep. That Christ talks about this with the enemy that snuck into the garden. He specifies that that the enemy is the wicked one, tying it to John, where it speaks of Cain, who was of that wicked one, and that this is the war that is ongoing even today between the sons of Adam and the sons of Cain, and that because they've been hiding and perpetuating their chaos and their whole New World Order agenda from the shadows, we don't understand what's really going on as far as the masses. They don't understand the war and the battle that is being played out even right now, which is why we see the chaos ongoing, and we see this, this divisiveness amongst people, because they try to say that, oh, we're all of, as far as humanity, that we're all of one people, but the truth is that we're not, and that there is a differentiation between the sons of Cain and the sons of Adam, and that they, because Cain, being the first murderer, liar, and deceiver, that those particular genetic bloodlines are schizoid in that regard, and they raise their children, even their own children, in such ritual abuse, and which makes them, that it perpetuates these kind of characteristics. And so, and these are the people that are being established and utilized by the powers, the principalities, the rulers of darkness, the eye at the top of the Illuminati pyramid, to rule over and to, slaughter the innocents, to create wars, never-ending wars of terror, said to not end in our lifetimes. And so, yeah, I think this is a very important aspect of what's going on in the world, and it's little discussed and little understood. And because of that, um, they have been able to rule from the shadows, behind the mask, and that they've been able to push their New World Order agenda to the point where it is even today. And so that's what we see all around us. And it's my opinion also that we are the final generation, the fig tree generation, and that we are going to see prophecy come to fulfillment in every detail as written within the Gospels. John, do you have a comment?
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute there.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, yeah, there's definitely, when we're talking about the gospel, we're talking about healing from this whole thing. There was a comment in the chat room. I'm looking in here. They asked, "Is there any real healing for these people?" And there is healing for these people. There is a chain that can be broken, because this is a family curse, and the Bible talks about curses that continue down through generation to generation.
Right.
It talks about, it's Yahweh said, I'll visit it upon two generations or three generations. I can't remember exactly what it was, but coming from a family that is steeped in the occult, my dad broke this cycle, and there was, those before him that broke it as well. But Francis Bacon, and I don't know if you're familiar with him. I am a descendant of Francis Bacon, and he was one of the biggest occultists you can pretty much imagine. I mean, he wrote the New Atlantis. He was highly steeped in Rosicrucianism and all these different things. And almost all the family members that came from this man down were very high level Freemasons. I mean, my uncle was a potentate of the shrine. He was a Scottish Rite Freemason. My dad became a believer. He became a Christian, and he went to he went to a Christian college, and he broke the chain, man. He broke that chain, that train of bondage, because the family, there's a definite negative aspect to all this stuff that happens. And people look at the elite and they're like, well, there's not a whole lot negative in their life. They got money, they got all this power, but there's a very dark negative thing that goes on with these people. And there's a lot of family curses. People in their family die. People have horrible diseases. Horrible things happen in these families, even if they don't. Some of them don't seem to be touched by this whole reality. There's still a splitting of the mind of these different things, but the curse can be broken, and that's one of the reasons that Yeshua died on the cross,
Yes.
was to break these curses, and to be able to, for people to be able to come into the kingdom and break free of this stuff. And I really want anybody that's listening that has been a part of this, and anybody that's listening that may be involved in this, or may have, even if they're not the one being abused, even if they're the abuser, you can break free from this stuff. This is something that Yeshua specializes in. He specializes in taking the broken and renewing their minds. He renewed my mind, and I know this is maybe a little bit off subject, but I feel like it needs to be said right now. But he renewed my mind. I was a drug dealer. I was a criminal, organized criminal. I was involved in many horrible things in my life when it came to crime, and when it came to doing drugs, and when it came to all these things. But he took me and he completely flipped me upside down to doing what I'm doing now, to bringing the truth out there, to loving people, and to being a person that actually cares about people, from somebody that was cold hearted, from somebody that completely was on their way to just complete destruction and bringing everybody to destruction around me. He changed my life, and he can change anybody's life, even these people that go through that. And David and his wife have ministered to a lot of these people a lot over the years. I mean, they got paperwork after paperwork of people that they ministered to, that have they delivered from this whole thing. And a lot of them are split personalities, so that there's a lot more involved in the ministering to them. Some of them are just demonized heavily. Some of them are schizophrenic. There's a lot of issues involved with these people, but there is freedom for these people. So I just wanted to get that out there. And I'm sorry if it kind of went off this trail a little bit, but I felt like it really needed to be said.
Oh no, appreciate your testimony. All right, we'll be right back, everyone, for second hour. Welcome back, everybody, for second hour. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Momentary Zen. Really quick, I just want to remind the listening audience, those that will tap into the archives, that Revolution Radio is the largest listener supported, commercial free, and corporate free radio network on the plane of the earth, and that we need your ongoing and continued support in order to be able to utilize this as platform for truth and bringing and sharing the information that we do with you. And for the price of a Happy Meal, for those of you that eat McDonald's, um, you can join and gain access to the archives and download the many shows going all the way back to the beginning of last year for all the various hosts that come on both Studio A and Studio B. And I forget the exact number, but there's a lot of people that come on 24/7 um, on both Studio A and Studio B, and that if you have uh, a conflict where you're listening to somebody and you want to catch the other show, that this is one great way to just go and tap into the archives and listen to your favorite host, and also to download the shows that you may have missed that might be streaming on the other studios. And so those of you that can, please do go to freedomslips.com and click on the donate button. There's various items that you can purchase as barter for your support, and know that we appreciate you 100% in advance for all that you do in helping us to be what we are. All right. Before I forget, there's a couple questions that I wanted to bring forth to you. I had promised Olive to ask you both this particular question. I don't know this individual myself, but they wanted me to ask about if either of you know about David Wynn Miller, who calls himself some 94th degree something. I'm not sure. That question was posed by Olive in the chat room. Do either of you know who this individual is or what he has to do with satanic ritual abuse?
I'm not familiar with him myself.
Yeah, neither am I.
I've heard of him. To whether or not he's speaking the truth or not, I couldn't tell you, because I haven't really listened to a lot of his stuff. I know he claims to be very high level, and from what I understand, he has some uh, pretty good information on some of those things that kind of line up with some of the stuff we've researched. But other than that, I couldn't tell you a ton about the guy, because I haven't got, I don't know him personally, and I haven't gotten really to know a lot of his research, just some of it.
Okay, right on. So I'm guessing 94th degree, that has to do with some kind of Freemasonic level or something, I'm guessing. The other thing is, do either of y'all know about or have anything to share in regard to how the RH negative factor connects to the satanic bloodlines?
It's an interesting theory. I'll answer that at first.
Sure.
It's definitely interesting, and there's I've studied it pretty in detail, because you look at the Rh positive, where almost I think 75 to 80% of humans have this Rh positive trait in their system because it's passed down very easily. Rh negative has there's a real a difference in it, but as far as whether or not it's actually fallen angel bloodline or Nephilim bloodline or whatever, it's man, it's super interesting, and I can't say one way or another. There's definitely something there. I don't know what it is. Um, I'm not a when it comes to
Expert.
studying DNA, yeah, I'm not an expert on the subject. I'm not sure if David knows any more about it than I do, but I know there's definitely something to it, but I'm not sure that it has anything to do with Nephilim or not. But there's definitely something to this whole thing. David, you got anything on that?
Well, pretty much the same thing as you and Rob got into this. Rob Skiba got into this a little bit in the conference about the Rh negative, the theories there, and another thing that I think ties in with it. Uh, Rob was talking about epigenetics, how that studies have shown that through specific actions and sins that people can actually plant genetic markers in themselves. And this is what the Bible would talk about as iniquity. The Bible tells us that iniquity is passed through the four generations. And this isn't like a lot of people think about the being punished for what your parents do, but this is actually the creating of genetic markers through sin that you can pass on. And I think this could even come into play in this Rh negative. And in the Bible, it talks about the iniquity of Baal Peor. And there's a difference biblically between sin and iniquity. Iniquity is that genetic propensity to sin that we all get from our parents, whether we like it or not. And the Bible speaks of the iniquity of Baal Peor that they were not cleansed from. And this iniquity was created when the children of Israel took part in a mystery feast that consisted of a false communion. I believe it's Numbers 25. You can read about that. There's a mystery communion, and there were sexual rites with uh, the ritual prostitution. And I think that actually epigenetics as well as inherited traits can come into this. And we don't understand all of it. I certainly don't. I don't think anyone does. But you just got to feel that, this Rh negative issue, it's compelling, and that in some way, somehow, this is a part of this whole package.
Yeah, this leads me to something that a quote that I was going to read just a small portion of. I've shared this many times on this show, and I included it in the second printing of my fourth book on the bloodlines of Cain. Anyways, just a quick paragraph. It says this. In his notes, my friend penned some personal thoughts after having considered his observations and the source of the DNA materials. And on the plane ride back stateside, my friend, who at the time was one of the most knowledgeable DNA researchers on the planet, pulled out the biggest piece of mental jerky I've ever gnawed on. His benefactor test subject believed that while most of the sons of Adam had double strand DNA, he had been told by his family that he and his blood relatives were distinctly different and that he, like his fathers before him, had triple strand DNA. He wanted my friend to secretly prove once and for all if this was true or not. The subject claimed that his extended family and their cousins, who are kings, queens, princesses, and princesses, as well as leaders of industry and banking worldwide, believe they are children of an otherworldly race of humanoid beings. He'd been taught by his tutors that once upon a time his ancestors had fallen to earth after some cosmic calamity in the time before the garden. He believed while their ancestral mother was Eve, that their ancestral father was not Adam. He was torn to know if a child of Cain was actually genetically different and whether he could be saved. David, any thoughts on that?
Well, I actually uh, believe that in the development of the seed of the serpent, that some of it comes through inherited traits, and that there are actually people out there. You know, we think about what happened in the Bible where God said to just wipe out men, women, children, and even the animals.
Right.
That there are people that become genetically non-human, and that there are people that actually understand how to selectively breed and enhance these characteristics through selective breeding, and that also they're even learning how to create these genetic markers. It's just like it said of Nephilim, he began to be a mighty one, which
Yes.
implies that he wasn't born a mighty one, but he began to be a Gaborim at some point. Like there was something he did to change himself, perhaps through some kind of a epigenetic sexual ritual. And it's possible that these cults and that the bloodlines of the evil ones, that they're learning how to actually create epigenetically these markers, and to literally, another thing that this whole thing ties in with is transhumanism.
Yes.
The idea that uh, we can actually enhance the human race, become superhuman. And in the extra biblical books of Enoch and Jasher, and I was just reading this afternoon about how this is tied in when it talked about the defilement of animals, and I always thought in times past, well, they were doing bestiality. And it's some of these cases, it just cannot be bestiality. They were corrupting this flesh in another way. And always what's connected with it in the book of Jubilees and the book of Enoch is the drinking of blood. And I believe that the final form of worship that the false prophet will bring forth will be a false communion, and that this is going to involve the drinking of blood that will actually change a person genetically, where they will no longer be human. And I believe that this is why that final form of worship, where the people accept the mark, why it's unforgivable, because it's going to actually push them genetically beyond the pale of humanity.
Yeah, I can totally see that. In fact, some of the testimony of individuals that are involved with some of these elitist families, they talk about at higher levels in these blood rituals. Um, Even the Emerald Tablets makes mention of these serpent-headed beings being involved and showing up, being able to be conjured and summoned when the blood is offered, and that the consumption, when they consume this blood, that it drives them to want to consume more, and it encourages some kind of shift in them, and that they also have the capacity and the ability to shapeshift like werewolf style or vampire-ish. That at the highest levels of the satanic blood rituals and ceremonies, that they are basically offering themselves up for possession by these fallen angelic entities, and that the consumption of blood has a component to physically alter and change them and to unite them with these kind of interdimensional beings. John, did you have a comment?
Most definitely. They're really, that's really, I guess, think the goal with, you look at the things like CERN, and you look at these portals that they're building, and I guess they're calling them archways. These portals, I believe that is what they actually are, because in one of the, I think I sent you there as this, David and Donna, but in one of the cities in London that they're building these they're not calling them the reproduction of the Baal arches or whatever, but the way that they're building, and they're building them in a very ceremonial way. One of them, the arches, is in between, which most people that are probably listening to the show are aware that the dome in a building represents the womb. whereas the phallus symbol is always on the other side, kind of like where they have the pool in between in Washington. They have the reflection pool, but they have the phallus symbol, and they have the womb, which is the Capitol building on the other side. It's the same way in London, the same way in the Vatican, same way in all these cities.
Right.
Well, where they're putting this archway is right in between, which I believe represents like a birthing chamber. When they do these, I think that there's something going on right now when it comes to this. The drinking of blood definitely brings on demonic entities. That's one of the things in Acts that they talked about, and in the rest of the Bible too. Not to drink blood. Do not. The Bible says the life is in the blood. Do not drink the blood. This is one of the first things in Acts that they said. They asked, what should we tell these people that are converting? They're like, well, this is paraphrasing, of course. At least tell them not to eat blood and not to eat meat sacrificed to idols. So this was like a really important thing that they wanted to make sure to let them know right off the bat. Do not eat blood. There's something with this blood thing, and it's a reoccurring theme throughout the scripture. It's a reoccurring thing with Yeshua when he died on the cross. There's something about this blood thing, and obviously his blood was different than normal people's blood. There was something about his blood that really did something a lot more major than most of these things. But there's this magic quality to blood, and there's no doubt about that. In black magic, anybody that studied black magic before knows that in order to achieve certain things in magic, there has to be blood. There has to be a sacrifice. In order to call on certain entities, there has to be blood. There has to be a sacrifice. In order for youth spells and for certain kinds of spells that are done in witchcraft, there has to be blood. Whether it be chicken blood, whether it be something, there's always blood involved. And that's because there's something powerful with the blood. The scripture talks about the life in the blood, and I know that uh, most of the people listening probably know this, but it's interesting, man. They're taking it to the next level, and like we said before, Aleister Crowley believed that the most powerful form of magic is going to be for a young boy, an innocent young boy, and that's the most power in the blood that they're talking about through black magic. So,
David, did you have a comment?
Yes. Our Lord said in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 24, of his resurrection body, he said, "A spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have." And his resurrected body didn't have any blood. Of course, he shed his blood on the cross for us. And the Bible tells us that our resurrected body will be like unto his, also a body of flesh and bone with no blood. And it says that we'll be equal to the angels in the resurrection, implying that angels also have a flesh and bone, not flesh and blood body. And there's two things involved here. It's like a process. They create the gate, and then they bring the person through the gate. And I believe that the reason why the blood is so important to these fallen angels is they don't have any. And the life is the blood. And our blood is what gives us the ability to live in this dimension that we live in. And when we die, flesh and blood won't inherit the kingdom of God. We have to shed this body and have a resurrected flesh and bone body to live in that spiritual dimension where God dwells. And just like it's the blood of Jesus that opens the gate for us to enter into this realm, it's this defiled blood that brings these fallen ones through the gates and enables them to take on an existence and function in this reality. And I think this is just the same old thing that's been going on since the blood rituals that we read about in the Bible. It's
Right.
using the blood to open a gate, and it works on both sides of the spiritual spectrum.
Right, and it's my opinion that's why, after the flood of Noah's day, that he made covenant with Noah and his family, and said that they are not to partake of the blood, that the life is in the blood, that they are not to drink it nor to eat of it. And the reason I believe that he said and mentioned and linked that to the new covenant is because the fallen angels and their giant children had instituted and created a paganized religion where they had that as the focus of their ritual, and that they, began to corrupt, even all the animals and all the plants, and that they were drinking and eating the flesh of humanity and drinking the blood of humanity, and that this was an abomination. And so, after the flood of Noah's day, he instituted that as part of the covenant that he made with Noah and his family. And so, and Noah, also being pure in his generations, had not been corrupted by the genetics of the fallen angel, the hybrid seed line that was the sons of Cain. Um, there's another question, and I'm just going to ask you this, David. Would you say that all Grandmaster Masons are of darkness, or that some of the Masons are of light, or some of darkness? I personally would say that they are all of darkness, even if they are just ignorant and don't realize that they're being misled.
Oh, I would agree. And even at its most innocent level, when I witness to a Freemason, I stay on two topics: that Freemasonry worships another God and Freemasonry preaches another gospel. And this can
Yes.
be shown in 90 seconds from a monitor of any state. And there's unspeakable evil that just from what we've said tonight, the depths of evil that Freemasonry is in political and religious and satanic conspiracy is unending. But every Freemason is an idolater because they partake in praying to other gods. The grand architect of the universe, the Gaiatu, is not the God of the Bible, but he is indeed Lucifer, and this can be shown. They worship Lucifer in the Masonic Lodge. This isn't just a maybe so thing, it can be documented and proven. But there are, and I might want to say too, that that Christians do get involved in Freemasonry, and that what we've always said is that if a Christian is in the lodge and they really hear the truth about it, they will get out, and we've seen this happen many times. So yes, every Freemason is in darkness because they're partaking in idolatry, but not every Freemason understands, and indeed most do not understand
Right.
the things that we're talking about here tonight. And if a Christian, and sadly, because it's often the pastors and the elders that get Christian men involved in Freemasonry, uh, Christians do get in there, but they will get out. And this is a lot of what we do, is bringing people out of the Masonic Lodge. So uh, that's pretty much the way we found that it is.
Well, excellent. We're almost to our third break, but when we return, John, I want to give you a chance to talk about the conference that you just recently had, and also with, the kind of topics and the teachings that were brought up, and if there's another conference in line, or are y'all going to make this an annual event, or um,
Sure.
yeah, well, we've got 2 minutes, so
Oh,
uh,
yeah. We're definitely gonna make this annual event. It's going to be this year went off much better than we had anticipated. I mean, we didn't know how many people would expect. We ended up having to pull chairs in from the coffee shop, um, you know, that was right next door or whatever. We had to pull chairs in to get accommodate people. It went really, really well. We had Gary Wayne, author of Genesis 6 Conspiracy. We had Rob Skiba. I think everybody on your program probably knows who he is. We had David Carrico, obviously, and it was just, man, it was packed full of information. We recorded some episodes of it. It'll be out on video soon, but we'll definitely talk about that when we come back, because it was just mind blowing, some of the things that our speakers had to say about it. So
excellent. We'll give out your website information and where people can go to find your work again.
Sure. NowYouSeeTV.org. It's NowYouSeeTV.org. Or they can find us on YouTube. Most of our content is on YouTube. Obviously, you can find us on Facebook and Twitter and all those good things as well. And you can check me out on. My name is John Pounders, and I'm on Facebook. So feel free to add me on there if you have any questions or anything like that.
Excellent. David, website information, contact?
FOJCradio.com will get you in contact with us. FOJCradio.com.
Excellent, excellent. All right, well, we will be back shortly. I'm guessing that it'll be any second now, and then we'll go to this third break. But in the meantime, know that we appreciate all of you, and if anybody wants to ask John or David a question, to just put it in the chat room to Studio B, or you can call in if you'd like and ask a question. I'll give you the call-in number for those that might be interested. It's 310-421-4053, and then we'll take calls over the last segment. Just please, if you do decide to call in, just limit it to about 3 to 5 minutes. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. And so let me go ahead and turn it over to John and give him a chance to talk about the conference and the unfolding and the things that the different individuals brought up as far as teachings, and also what the audience might have been interested in, and what was of the most intrigue as far as topics of interest.
Yeah, for sure. And it was amazing to me to get those kind of people together. I'm sure you're familiar with Gary Wayne, you're familiar with Rob Skiba, you're familiar now with David Carrico. All these people are different in a lot of ways. Rob Skiba obviously is Torah observant. He's done a lot of stuff about flat Earth, but he's also done a lot of stuff about Nimrod and the Nephilim. David Carrico's been, wrote like 14 different books and just all about different, things to do with Freemasonry, satanic ritual abuse, and among other things. And then, so bringing all them together, I wasn't sure how it was exactly going to work out, but it ended up being the best crowd possible. I haven't been to a conference or anywhere that I've seen as much unity about exposing darkness as I have in any other facility. I've been to a lot of different ones, and usually there's a difference in opinion on this or different, and people intend to argue about it. But there was a very unified spirit on these things. And before the conference, we were all sitting down at a friend of ours' house. All of us sitting there and just talking, and it was, yeah, we wish we would have filmed it because it was the most one of the most just interesting conversations that I've ever seen, because we were all kind of just like bringing stuff to the table and just tying different loose ends together and just starting to see a lot of these things happen. David talked about a really interesting subject that when you guys hear it, it's gonna be interesting. But he talks about the the difference between Lucifer and Satan, how he does not believe that Lucifer and Satan are the same being, and why he doesn't believe it. Very interesting subject. There's not a lot of people that have brought that subject out, but he did a very, very good job of doing it. Rob Skiba talked about some of the seed stuff that he's doing. It talked about some of these portals and things that we talked about earlier on this show. Um, Gary Wayne talked about something that he's never talked about on radio or on his book before. He talks about the King James Version of the Bible is the only Bible that actually uses the term Lucifer, which kind of almost went hand in hand with what David Carrico was saying about how they're, introducing Lucifer as almost like the light, which means the light bearer, but as the good version, the good God, which kind of goes along with Albert Pike's Morals and Dogma of Freemasonry, how Lucifer's the good guy, Adonai is the evil God, and how it all kind of ties in together, why they're putting certain translations together to fool people. And most people know that the Freemasons, they're authorized scripture, their authorized Bible, is the King James version of the Bible. And not to ruffle any feathers out there if you're King James version only, but the King James version is a very good translation. But it also um, is a version of the scriptures that the Freemasons reuse, which obviously we know that King James was most likely a Freemason. He was an elitist, and so they put their 2 cents in these scriptures. So just interesting stuff like that. Plus, we have a new show with David Carrico that's coming on Now You See TV. It's going to be a weekly show called Babylon Busters, and we filmed a show with him and Rob together. We filmed a show with him and Gary Wayne together. We filmed a show, all of us together, and one of them, just a very bold time. Just brought in. David also talked about just the ties in the area that to the KKK and the tie to the occult and the Bavarian Illuminati, and just things that I don't believe I've ever heard before. And some of the stuff I had heard some of about it, and actually before David came up with the subject, he was like, "Man, I don't know if you're going to want me talking about this." About but I don't think Lucifer and Satan are the same person. And as soon as he told me that, I was like, dude, I don't either. And I've been thinking about this for a long time. And he didn't know that I felt the same way. It was just really neat that he thought I was going to say, no, we don't need to talk about that, or whatever. And so, but it just ended up going together in such a really great way, and that's something that you don't see a lot of times with the conferences. And we're definitely going to do it again next year. I mean, this is going to be an annual thing, and we might try to slip some more in. We're going to be going on the road here shortly, hopefully, and I haven't even talked to David about this yet, but Chief Riverwind has invited us to one of his conferences, and we're going to be filming a documentary at his reservation, doing stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff going on that's super interesting and super exciting, and just something. The whole goal for us always is to push information out there. We don't always agree with every guest that I have on the show, or whatever. I don't always agree with them 100%, but you know what? I don't agree with myself a month ago either. I don't agree with myself a year ago. So I mean, that's part of learning things. So
Yeah, absolutely. I know from the things that I teach that there's very few that it's see it and teach it the way that I do. I definitely have a unique perspective on a lot of things. There are a lot of people that have come out and shared their testimony, and that they see me as confirming witness for the things that they have learned or been led to. But yeah, we're all learning and from each other, and we approach different areas and different topics with different kind of interests, and we only have a certain amount of time to really study whatever we can, and that we need each other to assist and empower one another to come to better understanding on all the things that are out there. Because as far as the secrets, even just contained within the gospel, the canonical text, not even all of the extra biblical texts. There's so much out there, and so much to read and study, and even just focusing your whole life on one text. I keep learning things new every time I read and study. Like just my publishing my last book, my ninth book on the flat Earth as key to decrypt the Book of Enoch, and revisiting the book on the courses of the heavenly luminaries. All of that was new information, and I wasn't able to understand it previously. And so we are learning every day, from
absolutely.
different things. David, let me get you to comment here, and then we'll go back to John.
Well, I think what made the conference so electric at times is that the speakers, all of us, we had different perspectives on different things, but one thing we agreed on is that we knew that we did not know it all, and there
Yes.
was a healthy exchange. It was this kind of attitude that there was like a no limits, no holds barred. There was nothing that could not be explored. And this created such a atmosphere with the people. They really come hungry. They really come hungry and they come wanting to learn. And I was just absolutely hoarse after the conference because of so many people talking to it. It was just really such a great thing. And I believe that the Bible, well, I know the Bible says that in the last days knowledge will be increased. And you see these people, you could call them truth seekers, that love the truth. And these people they have a bond. And I perceive in you immediately, you're a truth seeker. And this knowledge is being poured out through a lot of individuals. And through this coming together and this exchange, God is revealing his plan. And I don't believe, well, and I know, God isn't using any one individual, because if he would do that, our egos are so massive that they would explode, our heads would pop. But he's using a lot of different people to bring together and dialogue, and as iron sharpens iron, God is unfolding more and more of this satanic plan. And it's just marvelous what God is doing in his body. And I'm just so excited to be just a little part of it.
Yeah, it's a huge blessing, and there's nothing like coming together and fellowship with other people that are driven in the same manner to seek out truth and embrace it in whatever ways we are led to seek it out in revelation, and to see others that are standing themselves up in doing the work of the kingdom and broadcasting shows and sharing it with people. And I know that in having watched some of your shows, John, that you're willing to go wherever the Spirit will lead you, and that you're humble in allowing knowing that we don't know all things, and that there's a lot really to learn, and that the way that we can do that is by sharing, in doing shows like we're doing even right now, and sharing testimony in the way that we do. And there's a lot of evil going on in world, and there's a lot of deception and a lot of ignorance, and a lot of people that um, aren't even concerned with any of it. They're totally caught up in the distractions and entertainments and the deceptions of this world. But for those that are hungry and that are seeking answers and that are looking to people that can guide them in coming to discernment on some of these things, it's individuals like that that make all of the work really worthwhile. People like those that are in the chat room that join us weekly for shows, and that come to fellowship with all of us, and that have interesting questions and insight to share. And so it's a beautiful blessing to see how all that unfolds. But John, can you talk about some of the shows and the guests and the people that you have involved with the Now You See TV? And are you extending and building that out? Are you inviting new people to come and host shows on your platform, or how are you doing that as far as expanding and just all of your efforts?
Yeah, and I appreciate you asking me that. I know, we started out when I started out doing this thing, it was kind of just, you know, more or less just a one man thing, just trying to do interviews and talk to different people. But and I wanted to keep it that way for a long time, but um, I felt this calling to really just kind of grow and to reach more people and to do whatever I can to do that. And I remember praying and saying, I can't do this on my own. I have to have people that come along that are knowledgeable in the subject that I can work with, and that have the same desires that I have, and they have to be willing to work in a team environment. And within months, I've hearing about David Carrico, which lives in the same city I live in. I have a friend that is just really given this desire to do video, really strong desire, named Daniel Hatt. He's our main video guy at and Now You See TV. I have, this is just all in a short period of time. Then there's a guy named John Hall that is one of my co-hosts now, but he's also a very big contributor to our channel from the Louisville area, not too far, that really has a desire to do this same thing. And then just it's just been all pulling together in a way that um, is amazing. And we've added Douglas Hamp, and I don't know if many of you are familiar with him, but he used to be in Prophecy Watchers. He has a lot of interesting teaching on the DNA of the fallen angels, the DNA, the mark of the beast, and all these different things, as well as Toro stuff. And we've added him to the channel, and I'm definitely willing to expand as far as the eye can see. I mean, we're going to be doing a local FM radio station here, a couple other places. The things are just really expanding, and I'm just thankful for it, because I believe that, like you said, if people are faithful to really try to get the truth out there, and to not be so, there's a few things I am dogmatic about when it comes to my faith, but there are things that I am really understand that I don't know everything. I do not know everything. I used to be, when I first became a believer in the Messiah and first became a believer, I was real dogmatic about everything. And then I look at myself 7 years later, I'm like, man, I was such an idiot back then. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew everything, and I didn't know anything. And so I've learned to really just kind of take a step back and say, I don't know everything, and I'm not going to pretend that I do. I do know there's some things that I feel like I do know, but I always learn more that add on to that, to connect dots. And like you said, there's people around that help me do that. And just listening to people like yourself, or listening to people like David, listening to people like Rob Skiba, listening to people like Gary Wayne, and I've had all kinds of people on our show. I mean, we've had, pretty much almost not everybody, but I've had a lot of people, and I'm thankful for that. I mean, and I really do want to expand, and I want to build something that, because there's a gap, especially, and I know that all your listeners may not be believers in the Messiah, and that's okay. We're all searching for the truth, and I hope that, I would hope that one day you guys look into it, at least if you haven't. But the thing that I would say is, like, in the church especially, there is a huge gap. There's these questions people have, what are all these giants, what are all these UFOs, what are all these things? And the church has nothing. They're silent on the issue. They're silent. So when people go to search for these things, they're searching, and sometimes they're not finding good information. So my goal was to fill that gap to where they can find good information, which I believe is biblical information about these fallen angels, about these Nephilim, these giants, these gods, that are out there, and to really just push the envelope on these things, because that's one of the reasons I left the church. There was just no answers. You ask a question, they didn't know the answer. What they do? You shouldn't be questioning that stuff. Or they get mad or whatever. And that's
Right.
not what, as a believer, we should have a question, or we should have an answer to their question. We should be able to figure this out. And if we don't know the answer, we should be able to say, look, I'm sorry, I don't know, but you know what? Let's look at it and let's figure it out. But there's none of that there. There's no, and I remember seeing people in the church, I've been a believer for 20 years, but they're sitting in the back row, falling asleep, looking like they just crawled out of bed. And it's like, is this what power of God is? Is this what the power of the gospel is? Is a crazy old guy sitting in the back of the church, falling asleep, with no real power in his life, no real meaning to his life? Is this what the power of God is? And that's not what the power of God is. And that's what I saw in the church. And that's why I left the church. And basically, we are the church now. We're out here
Yeah.
pushing things around, pushing things out. We're out here putting the real power of God, because there is power of God. When we shine light on these cockroaches, when that's what we call them, these cockroaches, these people that are doing this stuff to children, these people that are out here creating these evils, when you shine light on them, they run because they're scared of the light. They live in the darkness. Even if they don't think it's darkness, they live in that darkness. When you shine the light on them, they're scared. And we look at ourselves, and I look at myself like David. David went up against the giant. He doesn't care. He's not
Right.
scared, because he knows Yahweh is on his side. And that's exactly what our whole goal is. That's what our point is. And we don't care. We don't care what anybody says about it. We're not listener supported. We don't care if you don't like it or not. You can go to another channel. We do it anyway. So there we go.
Yes. Yes. Excellent. Yes, I'm with you, and that's why I've been doing, what I do. Like when I first started, I was basically talking to myself. I was the only one that was even tuned into my show, and then I was really surprised when I started getting listeners, and so. Yeah, I'm really blown away by how far it's advanced and how far it's come, and I encourage others to do the same thing, to believe in yourself and to choose to stand with truth, and whatever that truth is for yourself, and to go ahead and set up a platform, whether it's through Blog Talk or whatever, that you can do these things and you can accomplish really incredible things, that if you just believe in yourself, and that and you apply yourself, and instead of just, because so many people waste so much time, and I'm one of those that I do not like to waste my time. I want to be productive with what time I have, because I don't, any day we could be called up, and the Most High could say, this is it. Your lifetime is over in any day. And so every day for me is sacred, and every day is a new blessing. And every dream that I wake up to, every new day that I wake up to, I consider it a privilege, an honor to be able to embrace it and to drink of it and do whatever I can with it to accomplish what I consider to be my mission, my work in serving the kingdom and serving the Most High, and to be a foot washer into humanity, and to, with the discernment that I've been blessed to have, to help others to come to remembrance on some of these esoteric subjects, and help them to understand the gospels in a way that they might not otherwise had chance to read and study. And that I know that many people are leaving the churches because they're not getting the truth from the pulpit. They're pastors, preachers, they're ministers, they're not able to give them insight into some of the esoteric aspects of what's going on. How the ancient aliens tie into the strong delusion and the New World Order, and how that ties into the conspiratorial side of what's going on in the world. And so, because they aren't getting these answers, they're leaving in droves, and they're seeking out platforms like this to find answer to. Let me give both of you a chance for final commentary. 2 minutes each, David.
Well, I believe the Lord is drawing lines in the sand. 2 Thessalonians 2:10, the scripture says, because they received not the love of the truth that they might be saved. And if you're not a truth seeker, you're not going to make it. And I know that there are a lot of unbelievers that are truth seekers. And I would encourage you, it's like the song that Larry Norman wrote, why don't you look into Jesus? He's got the answers. And we would encourage those non Christian truth seekers to consider Jesus Christ, to consider the Word of God, because it's amazing the revelation has given us. And what we need to understand about the American religious institution is that it is basically folding itself into the one world religion that we see the Word of God talk about. And the fact that Christians are getting out of that is not a bad thing, it's a good thing. And it's time to come out of Babylon and stand for truth. And like you've both expressed, it's a rare scenario when you can find anyone that's going to really address what needs to be addressed within what we know as American religion. So that's where we're at. The Lord is separating truth seekers from apostasy, and it's happening right now. And it's a good thing. It's an exciting thing, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Well, we're blessed to have you here, brother, in the fellowship with you. John?
I would echo everything David had to say, and I want to also just plug the idea that you're coming on Now You See TV tomorrow live at 9/8 Central. So just so all your listeners know to come on there, I'm going to be talking to you about your book, Cain, Son of Lucifer. I'm going to be talking about that subject with you on our show. So make sure you guys check that out, because I'm really interested in what Zen's doing. Hopefully we'll work together more on some things, but I would definitely close with the idea that just keep seeking the truth. And here's the deal, people, and I know that this you can seek all day long. You can keep seeking till the day you die, but you really need to just consider the fact, just like David said, that there is a God, and if you don't believe there is a God, and there is somebody that loves you and that cares about you and that wants to make you the person that you are supposed to be, that wants to give you your destiny, that you were made. He's the Almighty. He's the Creator. That you were made to fulfill. Without that, you will never fulfill your destiny. And that's my opinion. That is what I believe on, stand strongly on. The Bible and the Scripture says, if you seek Him with your whole heart, you will find Him. So if you seek Him with your whole heart, you'll find Him. When I seek Him, He's made Himself very clear. He was who He said He was, and made that. So I would venture to say that if you have not done that, I would plead with you to do that. And I just want to thank you guys so much for just giving me the time today to be able to listen to me. Thank you so much, Zen, for having me on your show. Thank you for coming on tomorrow with me. And I really appreciate the opportunity, and I had a great time.
Likewise, brother. And yeah, we'll have to do it again sometime. And I appreciate both of you and the things that we've had chance to discuss and share fellowship on. And yeah, join me tomorrow night, everybody, on Now You See TV.